The board was in executive session for contract and personnel matters. We will now resume with the continuation of the agenda. Mr. Mayor, educational programs.
Two informational items. If some of the residents arrived a little bit late, we did have a Cyber Academy presentation earlier this evening by Janine Villano. It was a very informative presentation, and we thank her for that. Another information item, Becky Pellis was one of 10 individuals selected to participate in a state initiative. She'll be working with the SAS project to develop cornerstone assessments in reading and English. And so we're happy to report that, and I think that certainly will be very helpful to the school district as we move forward, working with those cornerstone assessments. Moving on to agenda items, I would make a motion that E64-11 be approved.
Motion and second for E64-11. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion carried.
I would make a motion that E65-11 be approved.
So motion and second for E65-11. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion carried.
I would make a motion that E66-11 be approved with the name being William C. Felton.
So motion and second for E-66-11. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion carried.
There is one addendum that I would like to bring up. It is E67-11, and that motion reads that approval be given for the Air Force ROTC to experience a field trip to Pleasant Hills Resort in Heston, PA on June 19th to 24th, 2011. The cost to the Air Force ROTC would be $6,000. It's the Air Force reimbursement, and the student cost would be $80 per student.
Second. Motion and second for E67-11. Is there any discussion? If not, all those in favor?
Are the students paying $80?
Yes. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion carried. We now have a budget presentation.
My portion of this will be relatively short so that Jim can spend some time on the actual revised numbers. I'm not going to repeat the many slides that we've seen over the past several months that lists the recommendations as to cuts to the budget. I'm going to review some information that we've received since the last meeting, as well as to present you with some recommendations for additional cuts. We finally received our Title I allocations, as well as anticipation for Title II, but we will not be getting our Title II allocation until sometime, I believe Becky said next week. But in Title I, we did receive about almost a 10% reduction. And this was in line with Latrobe, Dairy, Mount Pleasant. One of them receives a 9.9, somebody was at 11, one of them was at, I think, 13 or 14. But I want to take you back to initial discussions when we first started talking budget in terms of Title I. And at that time, we had talked about the fact that if Title I had remained consistent for the 11-12 school year, we would still not have enough monies available to pay all of the staff who are currently paid out of Title I. And so we knew going into this that most likely we were going to have to pick up from the general budget salaries and benefits, whether they be teachers, aides, etc., out of the general budget. This certainly adds to that situation. Title II, we are to anticipate a 15% reduction. However, our Title I, our initial reduction was to anticipate, I think, 5%. And so we really are not sure what we'll see in Title II until the final allocation comes out. It will at least be a 15% reduction. When it's all said and done, the overall budget impact from budgeted amounts to the final allocation for Title I and then the proposed allocation for Title II is a little over $87,000. This slide has a number of additional cuts that we are proposing. The first one being the elimination of all aides in the school district with the exception of two, the Ligonier High School Life Skills position and the Laurel Valley Elementary Emotional Support position. Now, we did have some aide reductions earlier in this whole budget cycle, and so the $105,000 that's reflected is the net after taking into account that there had been, I think, two aide positions that were being considered for reduction. Reducing substitute costs by $33,000. When I first came to the district, I believe there were 158 or 160 teachers. Next year, between the reductions from last year and those proposed this year, we will be down somewhere 127, 129. I looked at the 07-08 and 08-09 school years, and we were spending about $1,000 per teacher, and so that's how I've arrived at this figure, $33,000. It will give us slightly more than $1,000 per teacher that's employed. Eliminating one reading specialist, and that would create a situation where it will be an elementary teacher who would be furloughed. Decreasing professional development by $42,000. I think, Jim, there's just about nothing in professional development, maybe $5,000 in the general fund. Title II is questionable right now because Title II has been a source of funding for two real streams of money. One is class size reduction, and so we've been able to use some of that funding for salaries and benefits, and then the other portion is for professional development. As of today, we are still able to use Title II for class size reduction. However, Becky has been informed by all of those federal program gurus that they're expecting a change to that. And if that's the case, that really would then become our professional development resource. Eliminating one matron at LVE, that's an estimated savings, and then one secretarial retirement at the administrative office, again, an estimated savings. We did have some good news. The August health care premium will be reduced by 50% for the district, and so that does create an additional expenditure reduction of $118,000. And I think that they'll be revisiting that after the new year to see what the claims are looking like and to see if we might be able to benefit from that a second time this year. And then this screen simply kind of summarizes millage impact that Jim will have in his portion of the presentation as he walks you through a portion of the budget. At each of the millage increases, he'll be providing a summary sheet, and these would be the reflective impacts at the Act 1 index of 0.966 mils, at 3 mils, at 4 mils, and at 4.8277. that's what that millage would bring in to the district.